Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to this interesting conversation we'll be having on this webinar. My name is Alexander Ezekiel. I'm the country manager of Melbet in Nigeria. And today we'll be discussing about the challenges that gaming operators face in Africa as a whole. It is at this point very crucial to state that Africa is a wonderful environment for gaming, and we see international presence in the industry, and several companies locally are growing, and we're seeing things grow, and then the impacts that this is causing in our industry generally. It is only imperative that we mention the things that affect operators as they thrive in this wonderful industry. This webinar is being hosted by iGaming Africa, and it's been sponsored by Gaming Tech Summit Africa. They are the organizers of the first Regulators Conference for Gaming and Technology happening at Safari Park Hotel and Casino in Nairobi, Kenya, on the 4th and 5th of June 2024. We hope to see you guys there. All right, before we dive into the matter today, I would like to introduce my speakers, my guests in the studio today, starting from the wonderful lady in the house. Please introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Matewa Nakata. I am the call center supervisor for Blue Iron Support Services, which is an online based casino company. What we focus on is servicing international players and providing them with online services. So basically, slots, sports bookmaking, everything you can think of in the sports betting industry. And we also provide them with different types of payment methods using crypto, using cards, not only just focusing on accepting card payments. So we try our best to accommodate everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Nakata. Please, Mr. Job, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, so my name is Job Weku. I work with Velex Advisory. We have a brand called Gaming Advisory Africa, of which we deal with, consortium services ranging from corporate services, licensing, strategy, marketing advisory, HR. It's quite a huge industry with quite a number of services. So Velex is your company when it comes to such services in Africa. Thank you.
Awesome portfolio right there, Mr. Job. And Mr. Taros, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello. I hope you guys are all good. Yeah, my name is Taras Edwin. I'm more of a gaming consultant in Africa in terms of product, regulations, and many other advisories. And that's why I'm here. That's all for now.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for honoring our invitation to be our guest speakers on this particular event. We understand that the regulatory or the challenges being faced by operators in this climb is enormous and a lot, and people want to give mention challenges and also want to profile solution and give suggestion. To this, we say to our audience, please, if you have questions for the speakers, if you have suggestions, and wherever you're coming from, you can just indicate if you are an operator, a stakeholder, or a regulator in the house. So please just leave us a question, leave us a comment, and we would make sure we address it as we, go along with today's webinar. All right, let's dive into it. Right. First of all, we would like to understand, Africa, it's a big, I'll call it big home. I call it One Africa. It's one place where we have different culture, backgrounds, and the likes. But first, I want to ask you, Mr. Job, can you give us what's the regulatory background like, the framework you have in Kenya? What's the regulatory framework in Kenya for gaming bodies?
Okay, so in Kenya, um, there's quite a, a, a complex regulatory framework, I can say, which is headed by the Betting Controls and Licensing Board called BCLB. So we have of course, when it comes to operations, you have to be licensed. When it comes to providing of gaming services, there's a gray area, but then there's a bill which is bound to be law, and we're going to tackle that very soon. So we have a couple of legal requirements that one has to adhere to when it comes to operating gaming business in Kenya. Now, first of all is licensing, as I said, and then next is mode of operations, taxation in from all the way from pay as you earn, corporate taxes, withholding taxes for your winnings, excise duty for your stake, and then you also have the gaming tax for your GTR. So yeah, I can say it's quite complex. The challenge is the inconsistencies when it comes to the Kenyan regulation, and I believe it's something that quite a number of African jurisdictions are facing. Yeah.
Well said, Mr. Job, and it is awesome that we have there's a rule in place so that people don't just come into the industry and carry out their own services like that without being licensed or going through a proper channel and all of that. And that makes sense that regulatory bodies, put things in place to check this. To go further, I would like to still ask you a question again. Um, what does it take to get? What is the process of obtaining a license in Kenya, for instance? What does it take to get a license? What is the process? What is the time frame of getting license in Kenya, from your experience?
Okay. So the requirements in Kenya are very much simple. First of all, you have to express your interest by way of making an application. The application comes by way of filling a few forms, subjecting yourself to due diligence processes, providing your financial projections, financial background, your source of capital for the business, your business plan, and all those things. So in terms of the period, it depends. So if let's say from my experience, let's say your company has a foreign shareholder, it's gonna take quite some time because of the due diligence processes. But if it's purely local owned, then the process ought to be shorter. Now we have three types of licenses. Actually, I can say four. So we have what we call the bookmaker's license. That's for the sports book. We have the public gaming license, which is for land-based casino. Now, from there, you can proceed to, apply for an online casino license. We have a lottery license, and under the lottery license, we have long-term and short-term. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, that's it. But the process is all the same.
Amazing, amazing. All right. That being said, I want to send my next questions to Miss Nakata. I understand South Africa is a very regulated industry. The betting industry in South Africa is very regulated.
Yeah.
Can you uh, carry us along the challenges that you face with the regulatory bodies or regulatory authorities in South Africa?
Okay, the main thing that I feel for me is a big challenge is the fact that although we have the National Gambling Board that is assisting us with making sure that companies are able to obtain their licenses and be able to work in the country, there's still a gray area with regards to gambling. So we have the parts where we say that online gambling is technically still illegal. In South Africa, it's not illegal because the National Gambling Act of 2004 regulates it, and it also regulates online betting, but it's not clear on how it's supposed to be done. So it's sort of a stance where you are doing something in the country, but you need to be careful not to overstep certain things that are not explicitly set in legislation.
Well said. If we're talking about legislation and other, authorities that are attached to the gambling or the betting industry generally, we understand generally that the betting industry is the most taxed industry, and most times the operators are sweating and complaining. What is the South African regulatory body doing concerning the overtaxation issue that operators are facing in South Africa?
So, with the over taxation issues that are faced, I just think the companies are just charged as normal. When you go to SARS, you need to file for your IRP5. And as a player in the country, what happens is with the casino that you are playing with, you need to go back to them during the time of tax returns to request for a document so that they can give it to you, and then you can be able to go back to SARS so that you can file for your returns regarding it. But the main thing which I feel is a game changer is that you are not taxed on the winnings that you get from the casino. So for instance, if you win a 1 million, they're not gonna tax you 20% of it. You get your money as it is because you've won it from the casino.
That will give a lot of relief to our players, because if you're getting that much level of taxation, both the operators and the players, they will really feel the heat and probably make the industry difficult for us. All right, our audience, our viewers, our listeners, if you're listening from South Africa, from Kenya, from Nigeria, I would say you send in your questions if you're an operator and you had challenges on trying to get license in these different regions. I would say send us a question, send us your experience and how you got your license, or the questions that you have uh, within this period. So my next question will be going to you, Mr. Taros. I want to ask, how are disputes between operators handled by regulatory authorities in your region? Okay, sorry about that. I think we have a little bit of technical concern there, and that will be addressed, and Mr. Taros will come back and address that same question. Okay, I would want to say, being Mr. Job, in your field of operation, um, it's you have clients that have come to you with concerns, clients that have come to you with issues in the industry. How do you assist operators, solve the issues they have that borders from licensing, that borders to around taxation, that borders around disputes between, healthy competition between operators and regulators as well? How do you assist and how do you manage these issues?
Um, okay. So first of all, there's so many issues that arise from the taxation points, the operational points, the strategical points, and and from the legal points. So it all depends. Now, when it comes to taxation, what happens with taxation is that our regulations are kind of like complex. So by that I mean, we have companies who are experiencing challenges in effecting all the taxation measures in games like casinos and crash. I'll give you just a typical example. Effecting excess duty on casino or crash, and then also effecting withholding tax on every, on every winning, excess duty on every stake. It's kind of like cumbersome and seems to not like work in the gaming space. So we first of all, we look at your reports, we look at your numbers, we look at your performance, we weigh on the tax liabilities, and then now we advise accordingly on how you go about it, what to switch, what to implement, how to approach, the taxation body, and probably, plead on your behalf for a linear, fine or something like that, because these are many cases that are happening in the Kenyan market. Now, in terms of the other part of regulation, we have companies who probably would experience challenges in terms of compliance when it comes to providing reports. So we assist on that. We also have companies who have challenges in terms of license renewals. So we come in and we assist in terms of documentation, we assist in terms of strategy, we assist in terms of compliance, and from all the aspects. Now, on the bigger hand, we also have potential operators who want to venture into the Kenyan market, or probably want to run sort of kind of business in the Kenyan market, and they don't know where to start. So we advise them on documentations required. We advise them on probably the budget, the fees for the licensing. We advise them on the particular types of licenses probably that they would go for, because you might find someone who wants to run a sports book, but he thinks of coming up with something like a lottery. So we advise on which specific license they would go to. Yeah.
Believe with this level of mediation, it will leave the operators smiling because the problem is half solved when there's a route towards resolution. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Job. I think Mr. Taros, we have you back.
Yeah,
Okay, you
can
can
you able to hear me now?
continue. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, is the regulators have been very accommodative and have been working closely with operators. This has brought about being let them being able to solve any issues that's there. And for example, in Kenya, when they were trying to come up with new bills, this new law is coming to law, is just they involved all the operators, called for meetings, took them through in terms of what they expected, and then gather all the information from various parties so they can able to work with to accommodate everything in one document as well. Apart from that, is whenever there's changes into the regulatory body, they usually also inform the parties and let them know that these changes, and in case they have brought different channels of communication to let them know what's happening. Like if you have an issue, you can raise them to, you can go directly to them. So these are built a very good relationships, which now is it's not like they are there to punish you. They're actually there to create a very enabling environment for you to be able to operate smoothly without any much issues. And that's cuts across now even to other level of bodies like the taxman and any other bodies that are being involved.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Taros. And okay, I understand a lot of people are having some challenges trying to connect to this webinar on LinkedIn. Please, you can use the link on the charts and on our message. You can advise your friends and colleagues that are trying to connect to this webinar to use the YouTube option. There's a link on the iGaming Africa page on LinkedIn to be able to connect to this. All right, let's just move forward. With all this being said about the regulatory, framework, the challenges, the issues, the space where the operators get to meet with the regulators, where operators get to meet with operators, where operators get to even meet with advisory people in the industry. I will ask this question to you, Ms. Nakata. Uh, what do you suggest, going forward? How do you think these issues mentioned can be resolved in your country of South Africa and other aspects of Africa?
Okay, so what I think the main thing can be done to fix it is inclusion. So everyone needs to be included in the decision making. They need to look at the factors that affect people so that better decisions can be taken. Because if we are coming up with a solution and we are taking it without the inclusion of the people, we are developing rules that are not going to be beneficial to anyone because we'll still be having existing problems that are happening. So, for example, we need to look at the rise. Yes, in South Africa, we have an age limit where if you're under the age of 18, you can't be on online gambling, but we need to look at the significant rise in underage people joining online gambling. Why are they joining that? So the solutions we can come with, the main thing I'm big on is inclusion. If everyone is included, all the stakeholders, all the operators are included in making decisions that can be able to fix the current situations that are faced. Because right now, although gaming is supposed to be fun, a lot of people do gaming as their online full-time job. This is why we have a category of people called professional gamblers, because all they do is just to gamble. So that means the rise in people that are joining online gambling and they're underage, it's facing on unemployment in the country. As you know, in South Africa, we have a high unemployment rate. So the best thing we can do is to look at how can we cap the unemployment before we can just put in place the fact that underage people should not be joining online gambling.
Well said, and I believe it's not just the position or the job of the regulators alone to do. The operators need to put their hands together to curb the issue of underage betting and the likes. That's just very well said, Mr. Taros. I understand in your country, it's the regulators, as it is. The regulators and the operators have their clashes and all of that. I would say, how would you, what solutions do you suggest that would rather foster future relationship, and relationship between the regulators and the operators in your country?
Not even suggest because suggestion has been already been made to them. Uh, first of all, is they involve the operators. So, for example, it come from the point if you're a new if you're a person looking for new licenses, these are clear structures, clear instruction from their side. It's now it takes you what you need to work on, what you need to work on. It's also helped the other guys like Job in their work in terms of when they advise their clients. Number two also is they have been working closely with the committee in the parliament and also the office of the where they are, just to make sure they call for meetings and get all views from different, as I mentioned earlier, from all the stakeholders to go, so that they can able to accommodate them. So this has been ongoing, and I can say from the previous regime to the next regime, this there's been so positive input, and thus it has really reduced the number of issues among the two. This also you can able to it's actually visible because there's been an increase in the number of licenses since the previous year to this year. Like it's like maybe 30% increase, like 40% increase. So that shows this very good relationship between both sides. Yeah.
Okay, very well said. To talk on this regulatory aspects, let's just talk on one thing again that definitely I'll use the word pinch. Pinches almost every operator taxation. Mr. Job, what do you think the regulators can do to a bit ease, give a little bit of soft landing to to the operators as it regards taxation and the different double taxation that the operators are facing?
Okay. So as I mentioned, when it comes to not only the Kenyan market but the African market, we see a lot of inconsistencies. Now, our plea, probably the plea from operators to regulators, would be if we can have consistency, you know, in terms of all these regulations. Let's say there's a law which has been effected or probably been proposed today and effected today. Why can't we have it run for probably like the next 5 years or 10 years? Because we tend to find that there's a law this year, probably midway or half the year. We've already seen a couple of changes being effected, so it's kind of like messy. As an operator, you don't have time to adjust, because I prefer, in any business, you ought to prepare yourself probably for the next 5 years. This is what you're going to work on. But when it comes to Africa, there's a law today, tomorrow it's been changes to this. Probably the taxation on GGR is 15% today. Come next year, it's been pushed to 20%. So what we need is probably our regulators to, have like a sit down with all these legislative bodies, mostly the parliamentarians, and just take them through what the gaming space is all about, the do's and don'ts, the side effects of such changes, uh, even the taxation measures, because putting taxes on things that we call them quick games or fast fixes. It's kind of like crazy. I'll give you a typical example. I'll mention a very familiar game called Aviator. If you are to impose excise duty on Aviator, just giving you an example. Let's say you have someone who's coming in probably with $1. So yes, so you tax him on you tax his stake. The guy plays, he wins probably after a few seconds. So how do you again keep on effecting excise duty and withholding taxes on all those winnings and losses? So I don't think even any normal system can handle such things. Now, the other thing probably that we also need to I'll also need to talk about when it comes to such policies is our wish for responsible gambling, in Africa. Now, if you look at such policies whereby the person is being taxed on his stake, his winnings are being taxed. Now it stretches his budget. Typical example: if I used to probably play with $1 and I was comfortable to gamble with $1 a day, now that dollar has already been eaten up by such taxes. My winning still will be less than what I was getting previously. Now what I'll need to do is probably up my budget to $1 or so. Now when it comes to sports betting, it's even more challenging, because this guy is now forced to probably go for probably more and more multi bets, because a single bet to him doesn't make sense. Once you touch his stake by lowering it, and probably looking at his winnings, odds of 1.5, odds of 2 probably would make sense, because your winnings will almost be negligible. So this guy is forced to go over and beyond what is expected, and it has actually affected our responsible gambling policies. Yeah.
I think at this point, it's going to bring us to having a stakeholders meeting and have this discussion with the different arms of the regulatory aspect of government to hear us out and be able to say these are certain points where we can all land and get some relief in terms of the taxation and other aspects of this. If you're just joining us as the our audience, that we are addressing the challenges faced by operators in Africa, and this is hosted by iGaming Africa. And this webinar is hosted by Gaming Tech Summit Africa, the organizers of the first regulators conference for gaming and technology happening at the Safari Park Hotel and Casino in Nairobi, Kenya. It's going to be happening between 4th and 5th of June 2024. We hope to see you there. Let the regulators come together and talk. They should be able to find a way where they will be able to have one voice and be able to protect both the players and also the operators so they don't kick the operators off the market. All right. We're going to be going to another aspect, of the one of the challenges that people face in the industry. And Mr. Taros, I would want you to throw more lights with this. I want you to give us a background in terms of the market dynamics in Kenya. Can you give us a little bit of the background about how the market is thriving? What are the trends? What's actually happening in the betting business in Kenya?
Oh, okay. What has really built up and made the burst of the sports betting in Kenya is more availability of the mobile money. That made it easier for guys to interact and to enjoy this sports book. So the dynamic started from having the mobile money integrated to make it easier. Addition of more markets also make it easier. Penetration of smartphones into the region, and then also affordability of not really that much, but it's a little bit affordable than in many other regions of the internet or data, and also the other thing is more of education. There's been a lot of education done to the markets that the market is really aware of what they're doing, how they want to go about it. So due to all these aspects, it's really burst up and people are now enjoying it and they're doing it in a very right way. The other region is just the other conflict is trying to push now is more on the responsible gambling because that's not another issues. And my sister had mentioned earlier is there's in case of course of unemployment, which has made people take it this like a serious job. It's not a serious job; it's a part for enjoy. So we really want really people, the operators are really working to make sure they have the right tools, the right instruments, say to have the responsible gambling to be there. Apart from that, also as I mentioned, is the marketing in terms of there's a lot of marketing channels that will start before. It was a bit less regulated than now. Now that's brought up the issue, but that's what really bring up the market dynamics in Kenya.
So, Mr. Carter, I want to ask, do you think your culture, your tradition has, given the sales, the marketing trend in South Africa to either go up or down? Do you think the culture affects the marketing dynamics in South Africa?
Yes, I think the culture does affect because we still have the stigma that gambling is taboo. So once people know that you're gambling, it's like, oh, you're wasting money. Oh, why are you doing this? Because you're gonna find yourself addicted. Or once people also find that you are working in online gambling, they're always like, can you give us the odds? Can you tell us how to win? They still think that it's still manipulated. So as much as there's a spike in a lot of casinos and bookmakers opening in South Africa, we still have the stigma that we should not be gambling because it's not right. It's still taboo. People still hide it. So sometimes you'll be on the phone speaking to a player and they'll say, I don't know who you are. Do you want me to get me in trouble with my wife? Then they send an email to say, oh, actually, I need help with this. So those things do actually affect with the spike, with it being popular and it not being popular, and the rise in it. And now, one thing that we have, which is making it more acceptable, is the advertisement of it. So everywhere you go, you're going to see something about gambling on billboards, on your phone, on your TV, on the newspaper when you're reading there's going to be something about gambling, because initially the only thing that we used to have that was big was the lottery, but now the lottery is also facing challenges or competition with online gambling.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Well said. Well said. It's understandable that both the online sports betting, the casinos, and then the lottos are all categorized under lottery, and it will make so much sense if people get to understand it, and also understand that if you have issues in the past, operators have been advised to create responsible gambling channels on their platform, to definitely assist people, so to avoid a lot of stigma and all of that as it concerns the betting aspect. Okay. Mr. Job, I understand you deal with a lot of clients that come to you. A lot of them want to understand what trend do I take? What style do I take in my to make my business better? What are the challenges your clients face in Kenya, for instance, and around Africa, um, as it concerns their marketing dynamics, as it concerns their sales, as it concerns their growth? What are the challenges they are facing?
Okay. So one will be regulations in terms of marketing. So we have countries where marketing is, an aspect of marketing is prohibited. An aspect of marketing is prohibited, but there's an exception to that rule. And digital is not. Others, digital is prohibited. So first of all, we have to look at the jurisdiction, and I'll give you an example of a market like Kenya, where above the line is kind of like prohibited. So you can do your adverts to do with corporate social responsibility on TVs and radio, but when it comes to provide marketing your sports book, marketing your casino business, marketing your lotto, it's kind of like prohibited. Now, again, we have challenges which crop up from just typical systems, uh, whereby in markets which there's no regulation when it comes to providers or suppliers, it's really messy. So you find probably we have developers from India, from Europe, from LATAM, who have the so-called betting engine, and they want to plug it into the African market. Now, such systems probably are not certified. Now you find an operator is losing money, is losing data. He can't trace because he's not the one who's hosting the platform. He's not the one who's running the show. The platform is cumbersome. He can't plug in things like promos. And we tend to advise on which platforms to go for, either switch or uh, advise on how to rectify, and so forth. The other thing would be just the marketing strategy on its own. Now, and the funny thing is that most of the local players with no experience tend to think that it's a market where once you get a system, you just plug in and you start making your own revenues. Wrong. So for me, I'll be very honest, and I'll tell you, if you don't have such a budget for marketing, please either be patient or probably try and venture into some other business, but not gaming. So these are the challenges that people go through. Other than just the laws, the marketing, and the other thing, there's an issue of fraud. Um, so I don't know how to explain this, but in Africa, I think this is one of the worst experiences an operator is going through, because you've actually employed this techie guy of yours. you've entrusted him with your system, and in case of anything, you fall back to him, for him to either troubleshoot or advise you on what happened wrong. But you find that most of these techies are the ones who are actually doing crafty business behind the systems, and they're stealing from the operator. I'll give you a typical example where we had a case of a platform which was, losing revenue. So I think the winning rate was almost 90%, and we didn't know why these guys were winning so much. Now, if you look at the platform on the face of it, everything seems correct. But as a thief, you can't be that smart enough. There'll always be that one aspect of your mind which probably you have no idea, and it's gonna let you down. So what happened was, we had this developer who could go to the back end and tweak the system. So he had like 40 numbers. I think all these were probably his friends or something, and he could just tell them to stake on any outcome. So either 1x or 2. Now, regardless of the outcome, this guy could just win. Now, when we did a system audit, we found out that there's a guy who had actually won after a selection of X, which is a draw, and the odds are 1.5. So we kept on wondering, as in, how comes the odds provider allowed such a flow whereby we could have a draw on an odd of 1.5. So on contacting the odds provider, he was like, no, these are the initial odds that we offered. And if you look at the numbers, they're actually not tallying, because theirs was 3.5 and the system was talking about a win on X on an odd of 1.5. So we ended up realizing that this guy could actually go back to the system and change, from 1 to X. Now, when the systems relay communication either to award a winning of 1, 2, or X, he could figure out the outcome and change. And once the provider's system could, relay the outcome, it could just, be a match. So crazy story. This is story for another day, but I can say, yeah, this is one of the biggest challenges.
Really, this is a big challenge, and uh, the questions that would be coming from every operator out there will be, what think the solutions will be? What are the solutions? What are the possible headway from all these concerns that affects the market, affects, because the major thing for every business and every operator out there coming into the industry is to make revenue, to make profit at the end of the day. So, Mr. Taros, I would say, what solutions do you think we can be given to manage or solve this problem that all affects the marketing dynamics, the growth of every
Okay. Okay. More so is you need to first, as an operator, you need to make sure your product is well and good, easy to use, and try and communicate as much information to your clients. That's by making it a very good UX UI experience, have a great customers, and then also come in terms of coming up with products. You also come up in terms of have bonuses, rewards, VIP treatment uh, that attracts clients to your system. On the other side as well is, before you enter into any region or into any territory, you need to understand the regulation in terms of what is the regulation in terms of marketing, so that you don't go there blindsided and then expect to do A, B, C, D, and then it doesn't work. And in any business, you need to craft your marketing very well and to understand who are your clients. On the other side is to just tell the regulators and the other bodies that regulates, in terms of whenever they come up with they want to do some regulations that can affect the marketing dynamics of the marketing dynamics of the operators. They need to involve them as well, because guys already done some prior planning for certain time. So we don't want to just bring a new rule and law and start immediately. It's gonna cost this. It's gonna affect definitely what's the plan ahead. And so that's very, very important. So you need to keep on that. And then also as we continue to improve the technology, in terms of data, increase of data, reach of internet penetration, reach of smartphones. So that also helps in terms of ease of use for clients.
Very well said. I know very key is people coming into the industry needs to have you need to have a proper planning about how what the market would be, to be like. That's the first part. To You don't just dive into the betting industry because it is strong. It has a lot of aspects for you to look at. And then the next thing I would just say, the regulators should make sure they make the competition fair. Let's have fair competition among the operators. Don't give one fair advantage as against the other one. You should have a fair playing ground, and yes, growth will definitely be measured. We've actually addressed a lot of today, and I know the next question on somebody's mind will be the question of responsible gambling. Mr. Job has said something about it. Mr. Carter has said it. Aros has said it. I want to, I would ask you, Ms. Nakata, because you have people have thinking betting is a taboo and things. What are you doing? What is the responsible gambling framework, in your country? How are operators presenting this, and how are the players using these responsible gambling channels?
Okay, so with responsible gambling, the main thing that we have is for players who admit that they have a gambling addiction and a gambling problem, they can go for counseling by contacting the National Gambling Board or the Responsible Gambling Platform. So for each casino on the website that you are joining or going to, on the bottom of the screen, it will tell you that winners know when to stop. If you feel like you have a problem, this is what you can do. Then we have players who are not yet addicted, but they feel that gambling is becoming a problem in their lives because maybe they end up taking money that is meant for school fees or to pay the house and they end up gambling it and losing it. They have an option of having deposit limits on the account. So with deposit limits, what happens is you go to the casino, you tell them that you feel you're spending too much, then you would like to spend this much per week or this much per day. Then once you've reached your cap, you can't deposit more than that. So that is a way of us making sure that people gamble responsibly. We also have an option of self-exclusion. So this is an option where a player says that I feel that I don't want to be on the platform at all for a period maybe of 6 months. Can you please exclude me from all gambling sites? So whenever they enter their ID number to try and sign up for any gambling platform, it's going to pop up and say this person wanted to self exclude. So that is a way of making them take responsibility and accountability. And once you self exclude yourself, you can't just come back. You can only come back by providing proof that you got help, you got rehabilitation, you went through for counseling, so that we know that you are in a better state of mind than you were when you left, so that we can ensure that gambling is still fun. Because at the end of the day, gambling is for entertainment purposes, but we need to look at the interest of the people and know that we can take care of them. Because at the end of the day, without the people and them being in the right state of mind, the business will not be booming. The business is booming right now where it is because of the people and the deposits that they make.
Very well said. You can pretty much be the voice of the people out there to say, we need to fight for you and be sure you're doing, you're being protected correctly. Ms. Nakata has put this well on paper on how this needs to be done, what you need to do as a player to self-exclude yourself, to be sure you are correctly guided. But Mr. Job, I want to ask you this question. Do you think operators are doing the right thing? Do you think operators are, dotting the I's and crossing the T's as it concerns responsible gambling?
Um, that's a very tricky question. My answer will just be honest, an honest no. Now, one, the market is very competitive, very, very competitive, and it's very painful for one to lose a player or probably just see a player, like bolting out. So I believe these are the challenges that, are creating that imbalance when it comes to, uh, ensuring that that we enforce responsible gamblings on our platforms. Now, as Nakata has mentioned, yeah, if you look at other jurisdictions, there's no limitation on either stake, there's no limitation on deposit, and there's no limitation on the number of plays that one can actually, play in a day. Most of these systems probably have no monitoring tools, so one cannot even tell whether someone is abusing, his or her finances. Some of them tend to have, such measures which are enforced by regulators, but when it comes to effecting them, I don't think they really work. Very few platforms probably have those self-exclusion forms or limits, whereby one can actually, just key in, uh, put his details, and walk away for some time. It's very hard. Now, if even if you get a platform with such options, uh when it comes to this guy, when if this guy probably has, self, I mean, he's excluded himself and he wants to come back after 2 days, very few platforms will deny him and ask him for proof of, having recovered from such addiction. So my answer is pretty much no. We it's really hard for for the African operator to enforce such rules based on the complexity and the competition in the market. Yeah.
I think at this point we can all agree that that's a gap in this particular case, and with such gap, we want to be sure that, as Carter said correctly, this is entertainment, and we should be able to do it correctly. And when the line is crossed from being an entertainment to an addiction, we should be able, there should be able to be a correctional approach to fixing this. Mr. Taros, how do you think this gap can be fixed?
The first thing is we should be able to have bodies that are responsible for responsible gambling from the regulators aspect. Because if you leave it to the operators, as we mentioned, guys don't really enforce them. So you need to have requirements from the regulator side that comes up with the or a body that's to really enforce the responsible gambling. Because we already know what we require to do. Nakata has talked about self-exclusion, deposit limits, all those things are there. But now the enforcement part was that the issue is. So this will need also each and every operator to have a fully fledged department, also looking around and see the trends of their customers and see how they're betting, for example. Because you can't say you can able to see somebody, maybe somebody plays like say $200 or something, and also a few hours. So it's kind of like chasing it again. You should be able to just go ahead and able to stop that. So from that's where you should be able to start from. Have a regulator side, bring it up and force it to the operators. Because at the end of it all, we don't have to create a society that it's just gambling and gambling, because that's not the way. This is more purely entertainment, and we should be able to stick to that only.
You have to hit the nail straight on the head. We have to get the regulators and other bodies in charge to ensure that this does not go out of hand. I understand operators don't want to lose players, as Mr. Joe has said, but we need to be sure that, because this is a strong and very big issue in the industry. All right. On a lighter note, I would want to ask you, Mr. Job, what do you see? What are the prospects for gaming in terms of growth, in terms of development, for gaming operators and gaming generally in Africa? What are the future plans? What are the future prospects you see?
Okay. Now, I think for me, what I can say is, if you look at the youth population in Africa, it's very promising. I think in Kenya the youth population is close to like 80%. Nigeria the same. Uh, and I think it cuts across, the entire African market. Now, if you look at this youth population and the percentage of youth who are actually engaged in, or probably who've actually ever placed a bet, it's really crazy and it's bound to grow. Now, it's typical example, Kenya, let's say Kenya, where the population is like 56, 57 million, with a youth population of 80%. And out of this 80%, actually 84% engage in betting. Now, Nigeria, probably with a population of 228 millions of or something, with a youth population of 70%, and 78 to 80% of actually these youth have ever placed a bet. So if you just look at these two countries, yeah, the total of the youth, the total number of the young guys who are actually engaged in gaming is crazy. And we're talking about an age of between 18 and 23. So in the next like 10 years, we still have, these people to deal with, and more of them are actually coming to the age of majority. So it's very promising. I think Africa is going to be the most profitable in the next 5 years or so, if you ask me. And that is one of the promises that we can just sell as an African nation. Now, two, uh, adaptation to the new payment methods. So we have uh, technological expertise who are developing day in, day out superb systems for, as payment gateways for gaming platforms. And with this, you can actually see the acceptability, the adaptability, market by market, whereby guys are tending to use these platforms to engage in gaming. So I can say the future is very bright. These are the factors that are going to drive growth in Africa. And yeah, we expect at least to have 400 and probably 480 million users by 2026, and quite a huge promise.
These are very big numbers. These are very big numbers, and yes, the future is bright, as I say. Nakata, I would say with this new demographic that he's saying in terms of the youth coming in, people getting of age very soon. They're anxious to try something new and all of that. What do you think the future holds for, or how do you think the youth right now will affect the gaming, future?
I think the youth will have a very positive impact when it comes to the future of gambling, because the youth is also very clued up on current trends and what's going on. They read up on the odds. They're not just placing bids because it's fun, but they will have a positive impact, because then they'll positively be able to say that gambling is actually not all taboo. Gambling is not actually all bad. If you read up on it, if you look at it this way, if you place bets on it this way, if you wager and put your stakes in this way, because they're actually studying it, then they'll be able to show people that this is entertainment. Because even when you lose, you will not feel like, oh no, I just used my last money, but you will know that you need to have an entertainment budget which you can use for gaming. So I feel that the youth is the future, and the youth should be included by operators and stakeholders in making these decisions.
Okay. Very, very well said. Thank you for that. Mr. Taros, I would ask. I understand there are no new, openings in life without challenges. There are no new space in life without challenges. Yes. Now we're looking at the future. What are the possible challenges do you think will hamper growth in the future, and what are the solutions you want to offer to this?
You know, they say there need to be an issue so we can resolve, so we can get a solution to it. So mainly is
Mm.
accessibility. Number one is cheap data. That's very crucial because that's can able to allow guys to have access to the product you're having. In terms of infrastructure, making sure at least there's nice infrastructure in terms of power, because the area that has power issues as well, which leads to all these problems. And then also in regulations, regulators therefore to work well to able to understand the industry. And also in terms of tapping into new technologies, AI is here, blockchain, all other payment methods.
Actually.
So those are very crucial things that needs to be incorporated. As you know, Africa gonna like think by 2050, Africa will have like a, they say a population of youth of around 850 million. So it's a really good numbers to work with. So that's some of the things they're gonna work out to incorporate what they want and to make ease of them as well.
Okay, very well said. I understand we're so eager to, embrace all that growth in the future and be able to, take the gaming business to a greater height. I understand that, and I appreciate your contribution. For our viewers on LinkedIn and other, parts of the streaming, other streaming services, we would say drop your questions. We apologize for the delay and then the issues that has transpired in technical issues. Please drop in your questions. We will address them before the end of this webinar. A question for you, Mr. Joe. Um, the question is, how do you compare the operator challenges in terms of environment, operator challenges in Africa and in Europe? I know you mentioned Europe, you mentioned some Latin America and other parts. So how do you compare the challenges that the operators in Europe face as compared to those in Africa?
Okay, so I believe the challenges cut across, but the African market being probably the newest in the industry is yet to to streamline all these things. Now, if you look at probably, let me just start with responsible gambling policies. I believe in Europe, they have well established bodies who have actually partnered with most of the operators, and they assist in ensuring that there's responsible gambling, and the effects are limited, and the solutions to to tackle such addictions. Now in Africa, we could be having one or two bodies, but they're pretty much new. They have a vast, area to cover in terms of marketing themselves, and joining hands with most of these operators. So that is one of the disadvantages that we're having. In terms of regulation, Africa is really trying. We can just talk simply about the sponsor to this webinar, whereby we also trying to bring in regulators to come and sit together, just have that synergy and try and streamline all these regulations, to ease cross border operations, so that probably if I want to let's say I'm an operator in Uganda and I want to go to South Africa, I know what is clear. I won't have pretty much new things in terms of regulation. So those are the things that we're pushing for, and I believe they're working in Europe in some certain jurisdictions. In terms of theft, a habit that is really cropping up. Europe is much advanced. They have experienced it. They've been there. They started this thing, and they've come up with AI. Artificial intelligence solutions to curb on these things. And as Africans, we are trying to adopt such policies and such systems to to try and safeguard our businesses. So pretty not much difference, but in terms of technological advancements in Africa, we are much behind, but it's something that is going to be covered probably in the next 5 years at the rate of which I'm seeing things moving. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's well said. Because as much as the industry in Africa is growing, is young, we are looking at even surpassing where this product was imported to us. We want to see how our laws can be better. We want to see how this change and all of that. Uh, Mr. Taros, I don't know if you can take this question from our wonderful audience. The question reads, what the challenges with the big difference in laws. I guess they say challenge. There are challenges with the big difference in the laws and regulations surrounding gaming across various countries in Africa. How can this be addressed? I believe. Sorry, before you take this, I believe. Yeah, due to the delay, that's why this question is coming, because it was previously addressed in our conversation on regulations. We spoke about regulation, but Mr. Taros, just throw a bit of light on this. There are different challenges as it affects the laws, the regulations, and the regulatory aspects in against operators in Africa. How can this be addressed, please?
Like the challenge that comes out here is we have different countries with their own laws in how they craft their laws, different jurisdictions, how they operate it. It narrows down to even to the states. Like the states have this kind of regulations, and it really affects because there are others whereby in terms of how you get a license, how you renew a license, a licensing period. So all these aspects bring an issue. It's not an easy task to go to take it through, but one other thing is where we have like an African body channels to talk about more issues that cuts across different countries, and then they can able to synergize and see what is the best practice for able to so that they can able to attract as many investors into the regions into Africa. So they can able to synergize this law, and this law. So there might be small laws that might stick to different countries and how there is, but there are the major ones that really needs to be there so that it attracts the investors. So that's kind of how it's gonna work. I'm not saying it's an easy task to be honest, but it's something it can be worked on, and so that you can have a more stable business environment, so that you're not afraid. Like this has actually led to other regions not developing much in this aspect, and other regions developing more than that aspect. So that's kind of something you can able to be worked on.
Very well said. And we, without beating this horse any further, we would say harmonization of regulatory, framework across Africa, because I understand we have different aspects of culture, religion, and the likes. But there should be some form of harmonization, and that's what will be discussed on the 4th and 5th of June in the Gaming Tech Summit Africa that will be holding in Safari Park Hotel and Casino in Nairobi, Kenya. So this is for regulators. Regulators are supposed to go there and find like a mid ground where they can harmonize, and where you think an operator that spans through different countries, in Africa, want to change one thing here, change another. You find a good leveling ground, because once these betting businesses thrive, there'll be local development in these different regions. So yeah, to fix this in the different regions, I understand that different laws are being created in the different aspects of the country, and but if we are able to harmonize it and we work together and one voice, I believe the regulators will be able to have good development in different aspects. I had to put that in so that you guys understand that there's a gaming summit coming up, and you guys can do. Yeah, so there are more questions coming in. Thank you guys from Felice Mulandi from LinkedIn. Um, your question is: we should share insights on the future of the online casino industry in Africa. I understand Mr. Job did some serious work on that, but let's give it a little bit to the lady in the house, Ms. Nakata. I understand the future is thriving. The future will thrive.
Yes.
What do you think? What are your insights? I understand we spoke about the demographics, the numbers, the youth coming in, and that. Let's just throw more insights on this. The future of online casino industry in Africa.
So the future for me of online casinos, especially in Africa, is not just bright, but it's very electrifying. We must all get our glasses because this industry is hitting all industries. So the best thing about it, why it's because it's also introducing more technological innovations. There's so many developments that are happening on it. It also gives diversity. So also earlier on we spoke about payment solutions. There's crypto. So with crypto, there are people who don't want the government to be in their business or following their assets, but you are able to still partake in online gambling and make deposits through crypto. With technology now, you don't need to have your laptop, or you don't need to go straight to a land-based casino to place bets. You can place your bets on your phone. You can place your bets at any time of the day. There are no restrictions because now casinos work 24/7 to cater for everyone, for every age, for every race. Another thing that we have is the culture. Remember earlier on, I spoke about stigma and it being taboo. In certain casinos, we have them introducing games that are relatable to people with the culture that they have so that they can be more included and feel inclusive into it. So the future of gaming is very bright.
Wonderfully said, and thank you very much for that. As you've rightly pointed out before now, people are a bit concerned about, going into a shop because of what they'll say due to religion, due to the people around them. But now, yeah, it's now much easier. You can play at the comfort of your home, the comfort of your gadget, your device, and all of that. And we can say there's a great increase in casino, acceptance in Africa in terms of online the various games and all of that online, and as well as the sports betting and the land-based lottery and online lottery as well. All right. That being said, I want to appreciate all of you for coming up today. Let's take a general closing remark on each person. I think I'll take on Mr. Tyros first. Um, and we just want to get a closing remark as it concerns the general challenges and how you've addressed it. Yes, you've addressed it wonderfully. Closing remark.
Just for mine, just to mention and always being a champion to say Africa is the future and don't be left out.
Yes.
Let's make Africa great.
All right, that's wonderful. Ms. Nakata, just have a good closing remark for you from you.
What I agree with what Mr. Terence is saying. Africa is definitely the future. Don't be left behind. But I also just feel like with the webinar, we can see that we still have a long way to go, and there's still so many gaps that we need to close and so many gray areas that we need to address.
Thank you. Mr. Job, I understand there are a lot of clients waiting to talk to you and ask you more questions about how they want to drive their business in Kenya and neighboring parts of the industry. What closing remark do you want to give? And I know they'll still ask you personal questions as regard this.
Okay, so for me, my emphasis is for us to get an open dialogue and cooperation with all these regulatory bodies, which is very essential for understanding compliance requirements in the African market. Now, having said that, we're looking at shaping regulatory frameworks and staying ahead of emerging legal and ethical challenges. My plea is to take such conferences like the Gaming Tech Summit Africa seriously and sit with these, regulatory bodies, we as operators, because it's actually a meeting between operators and regulators. So let's sit down and try and explore all these challenges, just as a unified front for the betterment of Africa. So, guys, I hope to see you at the summit, and it's been a pleasure. And cheers. Bye bye.
Okay, that's awesome from all of you. I would say it's awesome that we are able to address several issues as it's go through the regulatory framework, as to licenses, taxes, presence in the industry. We talked about the marketing dynamics, how the business of gaming has shown its tremendous and wonderful growth over time, and what we hope to see in the future. It has been an awesome webinar. I would say to the audience, please, you can relive this session again. You can watch it on YouTube. You can also watch the recorded version on YouTube and also on LinkedIn. Go into our hosts page, iGaming Africa, and be able to go through this, and also you can still ask questions, and we will be able to still reply you and be able to throw more light on this particular topic, because it's a continuous process, and we want to see a better future as it concerns gaming. We want to see a future where both the operators are smiling, the regulators are smiling, and everyone is doing perfectly well and okay. And that being said, we want to say special thank you to iGaming Africa for hosting this. You can check on their page to watch other pre-recorded videos, and also to the sponsors of this event, the Gaming Tech Summit Africa, which they are organizing the first ever regulators conference for gaming and technology, happening at the Safari Park Hotel and Casino in Nairobi, Kenya. It will be happening between the 4th and 5th of June 2024. I believe my awesome guest today has been able to address the challenges that face operators in this particular industry. Thank you very much for coming through, and thank you, our wonderful audience, for staying tuned to us. And it was awesome having you guys here. My name is Alexander Ezekiel, the country manager of Melbet Nigeria, and I'll say thank you. Have a lovely day.